And thank you all for coming. I'm actually really surprised that it's so full, that all of you took the effort to come here. I'm really amazed by that. And I also really want to thank our sponsors, Motif. Of course, I have to say this, but they were really, really kind of us, and they gave us really good food. That was the reason that we were a little bit later, because we couldn't stop eating. So my excuses for that. Okay, so the theme of today is intellectual crisis. And I can only guess your expectations about when you decided or why you decided to come to this debate. But I hope that nevertheless, the title was triggering you to think about what we meant. You might have asked yourself, are we in a crisis? And why is this crisis intellectual? What does it have to do with my education or praxis as an architect, designer, or simply as a user of the city? Whatever might have been your questions, we cannot deny that we are living in a time of crisis. We still hear it almost every week on the news, but also experience it when we are searching for a job or an internship, when we get fired or cannot pay our employees. But this crisis goes much further than our economy and jobs. There are many crises. We have political crisis, ecological crisis in the form of the huge sustainability problem that we're facing, or spatial crisis, which, for example, manifests itself by the emptiness of nearly 9 million square meters of offices in the Netherlands. And we could name many, many more. To some, this situation of crisis might sound uncertain or even disturbing. And for many, it literally diminishes the quality of everyday life. But for architects, however, this situation should be the opposite. For us, these should be the exciting times, because they ask for the vision, theories, and problem-solving capabilities that, above all, architects possess. Unfortunately, often we, as the organizers, notice the total opposite. In daily practice, architects do not take a theoretical, ideological, or intellectual position anymore. Designing for short-term advantages seems to be the main paradigm. This idea was popularized to such a point that Michael Speaks, an American architectural critic, in 2005 called out for post-theory. To paraphrase him bluntly, he said that the ideology of following the free market is the only theory that really works. And in the prosperous times before the crisis started, it indeed paid off. Now we cannot be so sure. On the other hand, architectural theory, as it is practiced mostly by academic intellectuals, distances itself from designing in the real world. Theory is too often regarded as a goal in itself, something to discuss in gloomy magazines with other intellectuals, while not even considering the implications that it could have on real cities, real buildings, on real people. But not only in the practice of architecture are we witnessing this growing gap. It is just as well visible in our education. When the TU Delft had to cut back in costs because of the crisis, who were the first that were kicked out? In the time that we were looking for new theories, it was more than half of our theory department that was sacked. For a long time already, it is normal for many of us architectural students to graduate without giving much thought to shaping our own theories. We merely read, we seldom discuss, and often a render says more than 1,000 words. So we see a growing gap between what theory and praxis mean for each other, both in the architectural firms and in our schools. But does that mean that we're also in an intellectual crisis? And what could we possibly do about it? The goal of this evening is to have an informal discussion, not to find consensus, but to broaden our views. We hope that this debate, the speakers and you as an audience, will come to shed some light on this. Thank you very much.